towns in Brunswick lie famous Hanover City. The River Weser, deep and wide, washes its wall on the southern side. A pleasanter spot you've never spied, but when begins my ditty, almost 500 years ago, to see the townsfolk suffer so from vermin was a pity. Rats, they fought the dogs and killed the cats, and bit the babies in the cradles, and ate the cheeses from the vats, and licked the soup from the cook's own ladles, split open the kegs of salted sprats, made nests in the men's Sunday hats, and even spoiled the women's chats by drowning out their speaking, with shrieking and squeaking in 50 different sharps and flats. At last, the people in a body to the town hall came flocking. "'Tis clear," cried they, "our mayor's a naughty, and as for our corporation, shocking to think we buy gowns lined with ermine, for dolts who can't or won't determine what's best to rid us of our vermin. You hope because you're old and obese to find in furry civic robes ease. Rouse up, sirs, give your brains a racking, to find the remedy we are lacking, or sure as fate will send you packing." At this, the mayor and corporation quaked with mighty consternation. An hour they sat in council. At length the mayor broke silence. "For a gilder eyed my ermine gallonsell, I wish I were a mile hence. It's easy to bid one rack one's brain. I'm sure my poor head aches again. I scratch it so, but all in vain. Oh, for a trap, a trap, a trap." Just as he said this, what should hap? At the chamber door, but a gentle tap. "Bless us," cried the mayor, "what's that?" With the corporation as he sat, looking little through wondrous fat. Nor brighter were his eyes, nor moister than a too long opened oyster, save when at noon his paunch grew mutinous for a plate of turtle green and glutinous. Only a scraping of shoes on a mat, anything like the sound of a rat makes my heart go pit-a-pat. "Come in," cried the mayor, looking bigger, and in did come the strangest figure. His long queer coat from heel to head was half yellow and half red, and he himself was tall and thin, with sharp blue eyes each like a pin, and light loose hair and swarthy skin, nor tuft of hair on cheek nor beard on chin, but lips where smile went out and in. There was no guessing his kith or kin, and nobody could enough admire this tall man in his quaint attire. Quoth one, "It's as my great-grandsire, starting up at the trump of doom's tone, had walked this way from his painted tombstone." He advanced towards the council table, and "Please, your honor," said he, "I am able, by means of secret charm to draw all the creatures living beneath the sun, that crawl or swim or fly or run, after me so as you never saw. And I chiefly use my charm on creatures that do people harm, the mole and toad and newt and viper, and people call me the Pied Piper." And here they noticed round his neck a scarf of red and yellow stripe, to match with his coat of self-same check. And at scarf's end hung a pipe, and his fingers they noticed were ever straying, as if impatient to be playing upon this pipe, as low it dangled over his vesture so fangled. "Yes," said he, "Pied Piper as I am, in Tartary I bred the can, last June from his huge swarms of gnats. I ease in Asia the Nizam of a monstrous brood of vampire bats. And as for what your brain bewilders, if I rid your town of rats, will you give me 1,000 guilders?" 50,000 was the exclamation of an astonished mayor and corporation. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Like a musical little death blow his pipe, his lips he wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkled, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, he heard as if an army muttered, and a muttering grew to a grumbling, and a grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling. Great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, gray rats, tawny rats, brave old plotters, gay young friskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the Pied Piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step for step they followed dancing, until they came to the River Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one who stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to rat land home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe into the cider presses bright, and moving away of pickle cupboards, and leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, and drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking hoops of butter casks. And it seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psalteries breathed, called out, "O rats, rejoice! The world has grown to a vast rice-saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just a bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone, gracious scarce an inch before me, just as me thought me said, just as me thought, Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Into the street the piper stepped, smiling first a little smile, as if he knew what magic slept in his quiet pipe the while. Like a music melodic to blow his pipe, his lips are wrinkled, and green and blue his sharp eyes twinkle, like a candle flame where salt is sprinkled. And ere 3 shrill notes the pipe uttered, he heard as if an army muttered, and the muttering grew to a grumbling, and the grumbling grew to a mighty rumbling, and out of the houses came the rats tumbling. Great rats, small rats, lean rats, brawny rats, brown rats, black rats, gray rats, tawny rats, grave old plotters, gay young fiskers, fathers, mothers, uncles, cousins, cocking tails and pricking whiskers, families by tens and dozens, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, followed the piper for their lives. From street to street he piped advancing, and step to step they followed dancing, until they came to the river Weser, wherein all plunged and perished, save one stout as Julius Caesar, swam across and lived to carry, as he the manuscript he cherished, to rat land home his commentary, which was, at first shrill notes of the pipe, I heard a sound as of scraping tripe, and putting apples wondrous ripe, into the cider presses bright, and moving away a pickle cupboard, leaving a jar of conserve cupboards, the drawing the corks of train oil flasks, and breaking the hoops of butter casks. And it seemed as if a voice, sweeter far than by harp or by psalteries breathed, called out, "O rats, rejoice! The world has grown to a vast rice-saltery. So munch on, crunch on, take your nunch on, breakfast, supper, dinner, lunch on, and just a bulky sugar punch on, already staved like a great sun shone, gracious scarce an inch before me, just as me thought it said come for me, I found the Weser rolling over me." You should have heard the Hamlin people ring the bell so they rock the steeple. Go, cried the mayor, and get long poles, help with the nest and block up the holes, consult with carpenters and builders, leaving our town not even a trace of the rats. When suddenly up the face of the piper perked in the marketplace, the first, if you please, my 1,000 guilders. 1,000 guilders. The mayor looked blue, so did the corporation too, for council dinners made rare havoc with claret, Moselle, vin de Gras, hawk, and half the money would replenish their cellar's biggest butt of Rhenish, to pay this sum to a wondering fellow, with gypsy coats of red and yellow. Besides, quoth the mayor with a knowing wink, our business was done at the river's brink. We saw with our eyes the vermin sink, and what's dead can't come to life, I think. So, friend, we're not folks to shrink from our duty of giving you something to drink, and a matter of money to put in your coat. But as for the guilders, what we spoke of them, as you well know, was a joke. Besides, our losses have made us thrifty. 1,000 guilders, come, take 50. The piper's face fell, and he cried, "No trifling, I can't wait beside. I promise to visit by dinner time Baghdad, and accept the prime of the head cook's potage, all he's rich in, for having left in the caliph's kitchen of a nest of scorpions no survivor. With him I proved no bargain driver, with you don't think I'll bait a stiver, and folks who put me in a passion may find me pipe after another fashion." "How," cried the mayor, "do you think I broke, being worse treated than a cook, insulted by a rival, with idle pipe and vesture piebald? Threaten us, fellow, do your worst, blow your pipe there till you burst." Once more he stepped into the street, and to his lips again laid his long pipe with smooth straight cane, and ere he blew 3 sweet notes, such sweet soft notes as that musician's cunning never gave the enraptured air. There was a rustling that seemed like a bustling, and merry crowds justling and pitching and hustling. Small feet were pattering, wooden shoes clattering, little hands clapping, and little tongues chattering, and like foals in a farmyard of barley is scattering. Out came the children running, all the little boys and girls, with rosy cheeks and flaxen curls, and sparkling eyes and teeth like pearls, tripping and skipping around merrily after. The wonderful music was shouting and laughter. The mayor was dumb, and the council stood, as if they're changed in the blocks of wood, unable to move a step or cry, to the children merrily skipping by, could only follow with an eye that joyous crowd at the piper's back, and how the mayor was on the rack, and the wretched council's bosoms beat, as the piper turned from the high street, to where the Weser rolled its waters, right in the way of their sons and daughters. However, he turned from south to west, and took Hoppenberg Hill his steps addressed, and after him the children pressed. Great was the joy in every breast. He never crossed his mighty top, he's forced to let the piping drop, and we shall see our children stop. When lo, they reached the mountainside, a wondrous portal opened wide, as if a cavern was suddenly hollowed. The piper advanced, and the children followed. And when all were in to the very last, the door in the mountainside shut fast. Did I say all? No, one was lame, and could not dance the whole of the way. And in after years, if you'd blame his sadness, he used to say, it's dull in our town since my playmates left. I can't forget that I'm bereft of all the pleasant sights they see, which the piper also promised me. Before he left, he said to a joyous land, joining the town in jest at hand, where waters gushed and fruit trees grew, and flowers put forth a fairer hue, and everything was strange and new. The sparrow was burned a peacock here, and her dogs were round our fellow deer, and honeybees had lost their stings, and horses were born with eagle's wings. And just as I became assured, my lame folk be speedily cured, the music stopped, and I stood still, and found myself outside the hill, left behind against my will, to go now limping as before, and never hear of that country more. Alas, alas, for Hamelin, there came into many a burgher's pate a text which says at heaven's gate, opes the rich at his easy rate, as the needle's eye takes a camel in. The mayor sent east, west, north, and south, taught for the piper by word of mouth, wherever was men's lot to find him, silver and gold to his heart's content, if only he'd return the way he went, and bring the children behind him. But when they saw it was lost endeavor, the piper and dances were gone forever. They made a decree that lawyers never should think their records dated duly, if after the day of the month and year, these words do not as well appear. And so long after what happened here, on the 22nd of July, 1376, in the bettered memory fixed, place of the children's last retreat, they called it the Pied Piper Street, where anyone playing piper tabor was sure for his future to lose his labor. No suffered they hostel or tavern, shocked with mirth the street so solemn, and opposite the place of the cavern, they would story on a column, and no great church was still painted, saying to make the world acquainted, how the children were stolen away, and there it stands this very day. And I must not omit to say, that Transylvania here is a tribe of alien people who ascribe the way and dress of which their labors lay such stress, through their fathers and mothers having risen out of some subterranean prison, into which they were in Japan, a long time ago in a mighty band, out of Hamlin towns in Brunswick land, but how or why they don't understand. So, Lily, let me and you be wipers of scores out with bald men, especially pipers. And if they should pipe us free from rats and mice, if we promise them aught, let us keep our promise. I messed that one up in the middle. once a young man named Roland Pye who played the recorder when he wasn't baking bagels. One day he was walking through a park and playing his recorder to rest him off from all his baking when suddenly he spied a corpse lying on the ground beneath a swarm of flies. He put down his recorder, walked over to the corpse, shooed the flies away, and covered the dead man with stones. Returning to his oven later that day, he found that his oven blade had gone on by itself and already baked half the bagels he needed. From that day on, Roland Pye was the happiest baker alive. He'd bake until he was tired, then he'd pull his recorder out of his pocket while his oven blade went on by itself. But Roland Pye lived in a town whose mayor did not admire his skill and was jealous of his fame. So the mayor devised a plan to rid the town of Roland. In the beginning, he said that Roland was a good worker, but lazy. Next, he said that Roland baked a whole lot, but badly. Then he accused Roland of being a sorcerer, and people turned on him. Therefore, Roland Pye took his recorder and left his home behind. When Roland Pye came to a neighboring town, he went to all the business owners, but none of them would give him any work. Finally, he met an old busker and asked him for work to keep body and mind together. "Come along with me," said the old man, "and we will share alms." So Roland Pye, the old man, started going around and singing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to wish to cream. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Everybody gave alms the old man, but to Roland they said, "What is a young man like you out begging? Why don't you work for a living?" "Nobody will hire me," replied Roland Pye. "That's what you say. There's a king with so many hungry soldiers that he'll pay good wages to anyone willing to feed them." So Roland Pye went to the king's kitchen and took the old man whose alms he'd been sharing. The oven had never been used by anyone. Roland mixed the dough, then he rolled it into rings, then he boiled them, dressed them with seeds, and baked them until they're golden brown. Then he tossed them into a crate to cool down. Whenever Roland wearied of baking, he'd play his recorder, and once he was weary of playing his recorder, he would sing, "Baker, why do you bear those silent things? Baker, how did you forget to stand where your feet are? Baker, no woman loves your wealth, although it is golden and good for her health. Baker, you are too dirty for a lover to push the cream. Your limbs are the knots and cords of an old-fashioned machine. Baker, line the rings and bash the boards. You don't need their applause for a thing that is yours. You are a baker and are what you are, not by a miracle, but by the work of your arms. Baker, be who you are." Hearing the singing, a princess looked out the window. She saw Roland Pye and fell in love with him. But she was a princess, he a baker. The king would never consent to their marriage. So they decided to run away together. They fled at night in a boat. When they were already on the high seas, Roland remembered the busker. He said to his beloved, "We must fetch the old man, since he shared his alms with me. We can't go off and leave him like that." At that very moment, the old man came up behind the boat, walking on the water as though it had been dry land. Reaching the boat, he said, "We agreed to divide everything we had, and I shared everything I own. Now you have the king's daughter, and must give half to her to me." At this, he gave Roland Pye the knife to cut his bride in two. Roland Pye took the knife with a trembling hand. "You are right," he said. "You are perfectly right." He was on the point of cutting his bride in two, when suddenly the old man stopped him. "Stop. I knew you were a just man. I am the dead man, mind you, whom you covered with stones. Go now, and may the two of you always be happy. At this the old man walked away on the waves. The boat came to an island rich in all good things, with a princely palace waiting newlyweds. Why do people ask questions like that? I'm in the wrong category, apparently. I know, I consider this performing art. Nobody's watching anyways. You didn't stay for the answer to your question. Poetry apparently is not performing art. If you don't stay for the entire stream, you wouldn't know what the hell is going on. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that personally scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What save Whaley with his lives and snare? All travelers might find him posted there, and ask the road. I guess what skull like laugh would break, what crutch can wreck my epitaph for pastime. That's the thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside to ominous track which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I deterred as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end described, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out for years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes the farewell of each friend, and hears one bid the other go, draw a breath, freely outside, since all is over, he saith, with low fall and no grieving can amend. While some discuss if there are the graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with caribou banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man knows all and only craves, and may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft be near. Into the oh my God. My first thought was he lied in every word, that hoary cripple with malicious eye, askance to watch the working of his lie on mine, and most scarce able to afford suppression of the glee that cursed and scored its edge at one more victim gained thereby. What else should he be set for with his staff? What saved the wailing with his lies and snare? All travelers who might find him posted there. And asked the road, I guessed what skull like laugh would break, what crutch can write my epitaph for pastime in the dusty thoroughfare. If at his counsel I should turn aside into ominous crack which all agree hides the dark tower, yet acquiescingly I did turn as he pointed, neither pride nor hope rekindling at the end described, so much as gladness some end might be. For what with my whole world wide wondering, what with my search drawn out through years, my hope dwindled into a ghost not fit to cope with that obstreperous joy success would bring. I hardly tried now to rebuke the spring my heart made, finding failure in its scope. As a sick man very near to death seems dead indeed, and feels begin and end the tears, and takes farewell of each friend, and here's one bid the other go. Draw breath freely outside, since all is over, he saith, and the blow fallen no grieving can amend. While some discuss if near other graves be room enough for this, and when a day suits best for carrying the corpse away, with care about banners, scarfs, and staves, and still the man hears all and only craves, he may not shame such tender love and stay. Thus I had for so long suffered in this quest, heard failure prophesied so oft being writ, so many times among the band to wit, the knights who two dark towers search addressed their steps, that just to fail as they seem best, and all doubt was now should I be fit. So quiet as despair I turned from him, the hateful cripple out of this highway into the path he pointed. All the day had been a dreary one at best, and dim was settling into his clothes, yet shot one grim round deer to see the plain senses astray. For mark, no sooner was I fairly found, fled to the plain after a pace or two, to pause and throw backward a last view. Over the safe road 'twas gone, great plain all round, nothing but plain to the horizon's bound. I must go on, naught else remained to do. So on I went. I think I never saw such starved noble nature. Nothing throve, for flowers as well expect a cedar grove, but chortle and spurge, according to their law, might propagate their kind with none to awe. Think a bird being a treasure trove. No Penry and heard this thing remains, in some strange store word the land's portion. See or close your eyes, said nature peevishly. If nothing skills, I can't help my case. 'Tis last judgment's fire must cure this place. Calcine its paws and set my prisoners free. If there pushed any ragged thistle stalk above its knees, its head was chalked. Bents were jealous elves, what made the holes and rents in the dog's harsh forest leaves. Bruised as to bog, whole loaf of greenness, 'tis a brute must walk, passing their life over the brute's intents. As for the grass, it grew as scarce as hair and leprosy. Thin, dry blades pricked the mud which underneath was kneaded up with blood. One stiff, blind horse, as every bone stared, stood stupefied however he came there, thrust out past service in the devil's stud. Alive, he might be dead for aught I know, with red, gaunt, and callous neck astrain, and shut eyes beneath the rusty mane. Seldom went such grotesqueness with such woe. I never saw a brute I hated so. He must have been wicked to deserve such pain. I shut my eyes and turned them on my heart, as the man calls for wine before he fights. I asked one draught of earlier happier sight. Ere fitly I could hope to play the part. Think first, fight afterwards, soldier's art. One taste of old times sets all to rights. Not it. I fancied Cuthbert's reddening face beneath its garniture of curly gold. Dear fellow, till I almost felt him fold. An arm in mine to fix me to that place. That way he used. Alas, when night's disgrace, how went my heart's be fire and left it cold. Giles then, the soul of honor, there he stands. Frank as 10 years ago at night at first. An honest man should dare, he said he durst. Good, but the scenes shift. Fall what hangman's hand pinned to his breast of parchment. His own band reads it. Poor traitors spit upon and cursed. It's better this present than a past like that. Back therefore to my darkening path. No sound to sight as far as the eye can strain. Will the night send a howl at our bat, I asked, when something on the dismal flat came to arrest my thoughts and change their train. A sudden river crossed my path, as unexpected as a serpent came. No tides congenial through the glooms. This as it frothed by might have been a bath of the fiend's glowing hoof, to see the wrath of its black eddies be spat with plates and spoons. So petty yet so spiteful, all along low scrubby alders kneeled over it. Drenched willows flung them headlong, in a fit of rout despair, a suicidal throng. The river which had done them all the wrong, whatever that was, rolled by and deterred no whit. Which while I forded, good saints, how I feared to set my foot upon a dead man's cheek. Each step or field spear I thrust to seek, the hollows tangled in his narrow beard. It may have been a water rat I speared, but it sounded like a baby's shriek. Glad was I to reach the other bank, now for a better country. Vain presage, who were the strugglers, what war did they wage? Whose savage trample could thus pad the dank soil to a flash? Toads in a poison tank, the wild cats in a red hot cage. More than that, a furlong on, why there, what bad use was that engine for? That wheel, or break not wheel, that harrow fit to reel men's bodies out like silk, with all the air of coffin spirit, on earth left unaware, brought to sharpen its rusty teeth of steel. Then came some stub ground, once wood, next the marsh it would seem, now mere earth, desperate and done my soul's cruel finds mirth, makes a thing and mars it, Does new changes and off he goes, within a rude bog clay mark, sand and stark black dirt. Now blotched blankly colored gay grim, now patches where some leanness of the soils broke into mossy substances like oils. Then came a palsied oak, a cleft in him, a distorted mouth that splits its rim, gaping at death and dies while it recoils. As far as ever from the end, not in the distance but the evening nod, to point my footsteps further at the thought, great black bird, Apollyon's bosom's friend, sailed past the reed his wide wings dragon pen, and brushed my cap perchance the guide I sought. For looking up where I somehow grew, the plain had given place all round to mountains with such names to grace mere heights and heaps now stolen in view. How thus they surprised me solving you, how to get from there was no clear case. Yet half I seemed to recognize some trick of mischief had happened to me, God knows when. In a bad dream perhaps, here ended then progress's way, when in the very nick of giving up one more time came a click as when the trap shuts are in the den. Burningly it came upon me all at once, this was the place, those two hills couched like two bulls locked horn in horn in fight, while to the left a tall scalp mountain, dunce doddered and dozing at the very nuts, after a lifetime of training at the site. One in the midst lay but the tower itself, the round squat turret, built of brown, blind as a fool's heart, built of brown stone without a counterpart in the whole world. The tempest mocking elf points to the shipman thus the unseen shelf, it strikes on only when timbers start. Not see, when night, because of night perhaps, why day came back to that. Behind it left the dying sunset, kindled to a cleft. The hills like two giants in the hunting lay, chin upon hand to see the game at bay, now stab and end the creature to the heft. Not here, when noise was everywhere and told, increasing like a bell, names in my ears, of lost adventurers my peers, how such was strong and such was bold, and such was fortunate yet each of old, lost, one moment down the roll of years. There they stood, ranged along the hillside met, to view the last of me, a living frame, for one more picture in a sheet of flame. I saw them and knew them all, and yet, dauntless a slug or to my lips I sat and blew, child rolled to a dark arcade. Child rolled into a dark arcade. Baked sesame seeds smell like popcorn. Freshly baked popcorn. Popcorn. Popcorn bagels. once a rich man who had just one son, and the boy was dearly loved by his father. As everybody knows, the greatest scourge on earth for a rich man is work. Therefore, when his son turned 14, the father decided to send him to school to learn the science of laziness. On the same street as a rich man, there lived a famous and highly respected professor who had never done a lick of work in his life he could get out of doing. The rich man called on him and found him stretched out in the garden under a fig tree, with a cushion under his head, a cushion under his back, and a cushion under his buttocks. Before talking to him, I must first see how he does, said the rich man to himself, and he hid behind a hedge to observe the man. The professor lay as still as a corpse, with his eyes closed. The only time he moved was whenever he heard the thud of a ripe fig falling on the ground near where he lay. He'd reach slowly out, bring the fruit to his mouth, and swallow it. Then he wouldn't stir again until another fig fell. This is just the professor my son needs, decided the rich man. And he came out from his hiding place, introduced himself, and asked the professor if he'd teach his son the science of laziness. Old man, answered the professor just above a whisper, don't talk so much. It tires me to listen to you. If you want to bring your son up as you and I are, just send him to me. So the rich man went home, took his son by the hand, thrust the feathered pillow under his arm, and led him to the garden. I urge you, he told him, to do everything you see this professor of idleness do. The boy, who already had an inclination for that particular science, also stretched out under the fig tree. Observing his teacher, he saw him reach for every fig that fell and bring it to his mouth. Why should I work myself to death, reaching for figs, he thought, and he lay there with his mouth wide open. Soon a fig fell into his mouth, and he let it go down slowly. Then he reopened his mouth. Another fig fell. This time it missed. He lay there perfectly still and murmured, why so wide of the mark? Fig fall into my mouth. Seeing how wise his pupil already was, the professor said, go on now. You have nothing to learn from me. You can even teach me something. So the boy went home to his father, who thanked heaven for having given him such a smart son. This isn't performing arts, I don't know what is. Contaminating Twitch's categories. The taint. The taint of miscategorization. The horrible taint of miscategorization. The unforgivable taint of miscategorization. The unforgivable taint of miscategorization. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, assume among the powers of the earth separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect for the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which compel them to its separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for life or transient causes. And experience accordingly has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer when evils are sufferable than right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, all having pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patience, sufferance of these colonies, and such is the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of England is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over the state. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused assent to laws most wholesome and necessary for the public good. I should memorize the rest of that one. Good old Declaration of Independence. Be a good exercise for some Americans to memorize. The Declaration of Independence that must sustain their democratic values, which are under threat currently. By the demagogue in chief. The demagogue in chief. I would argue that bagel making is a fine art. I've elevated it to be a level of art. Artistical creation. the stream. I'm about to go get coffee, so I'll be shutting the stream down pretty soon. I miscategorized myself this morning. I'm on music and performing arts, which apparently I can't be on. It's an egregious miscategorization. I was reciting poetry earlier. I do consider that performing art, but I guess some people don't. It is not the focus of this stream, though. My stream is about baking bagels, primarily. I would not be here otherwise. What I do for a living. That's my really bad version of Star Spangled Banner, blah, 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 whatever. One day God said, "This is what I'll do. I'll send down my son to clear up this humpity bumpity hullabaloo. His name will be Christ, and his name will be Christ, and his friends will call him." How's it going? One day God said, "This is what I'll do. I'll send out my son. I'll send him down to you to clear up this humpity bumpity hullabaloo. His name will be Christ, and he'll never wear shoes, and his friends will call him the King of the Jews. He didn't come in a Jeep plane, he didn't come in a jeep, he didn't come in a pouch of a high jumping go beat. He rode on the back of a black Saskatoon, blackiest creature you ever could view. He rode into Jerusalem, home of the grumpy Jews, where false prophets were worshipped, some even in tubes. There was Murray Falmer and Genghis for booze, the one you could worship taking a snooze. Christ spoke from a mount, pile of ground, people gathered around without making a sound. Thus he spake, sin in socks full of sin. How shall we quiet this Jehovah din? Do unto others as others do unto you. That includes you, Timothy Foo. And one Pharisee said to another he knew, what shall we do about this uppity Jew? Wash him in wine and make him all clean, and into Sam Biddle's crucifixion machine. Twirl the girl and release the gablees, and in go the nails as fast as you please. And he said as he bled, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do, because they walk this world wearing two crafty shoes. Do you? Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. On earth as it is in heaven. I don't know any of that. Don't know any. It's not famous enough. I don't know. It's not famous enough. I don't know it because it's not famous enough. That's all, folks. Thanks for not watching. And you're welcome. Have an excellent morning.